Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and we've gone into Venezuela for quite some time now as hyperinflation strikes. People are in breadlines, they're suffering, they're forced to go into zoos to find animals, they're eating their dogs. It's sickening.
They're firebombing sugar trucks.
Absolutely, because they need their calories, and this is just the inevitable end of a socialist empire. And you know, it's really sad, but, you know, the socialist government headed by Nicolas Maduro, of course, is basically playing a really sick trick on people. And I'll go into that in a second, but it's just the fact that, you know, you're not allowed to, you know, actually be independent in Venezuela. You're not allowed to actually go on the market, make a living for yourself, and try and actually, you know, be self-sustainable. But when it comes to rabbits, apparently that's a one differentiation in that equation, because according to BBC.com, Venezuela's rabbit plan encounters cultural problems. Now, to go into it, as they report, Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro has devised a rabbit plan to counter the economic war he says is being waged against his government by imperialist forces. The president urged crisis-hit Venezuelans to breed rabbits and eat them as a source of animal protein. Venezuela is facing record levels of child malnutrition amid persistent food shortages. An opposition politician said the plan was a bad joke. And just to pull out from that for a second, yeah, and, you know, unfortunately for that opposition politician, he might get purged by the resistance led by Maduro. This is just the horrible, horrible fate of a socialist country like Venezuela, which is in ruins, where opposition politicians, opposition forces of all kind are being purged, and Maduro's arming people that are loyalists to him to purge them and get rid of them, and they're being locked up in prison and killed. Horrible. Anyway, to continue, President Maduro revealed the idea on state television, saying that for animal protein, which is such an important issue, a rabbit plan has been approved because rabbits also breed like rabbits. Haha, very funny. The leader did say that the rabbit plan had not got off to a good start, and the Minister of Urban Agriculture, Freddie Bernal, said there had been a cultural problem. People put bows on them. President Maduro said rabbit kittens had been handed to 15 communities as part of a pilot project by Mr. Bernal. When he came back, to his surprise, he found people had put little bows on their rabbits and were keeping them as pets. It was an early setback to rabbit plan. A lot of people gave names to the rabbits. They took them to bed, Mr. Bernal said. The minister urged Venezuelans to start seeing rabbits from the point of view of the economic war. Okay. Now, this is just sick, John. Go into this.
Well, this first of all, like, you can see Maduro, of course, sitting here and smiling like it's such a funny plan, you know, devising. And first of all, like, the Venezuelan people needs to be independent of the government, have their own food, have their everything, you know, not being dependent on the government. It's terrible to be dependent on the government. That's what they want, though, and that's, you know, how he's laughing at, you know, giving people these pet rabbits, which is terrible. I want to break down quickly, you know, this economic warfare he talks about that the United States created. Well, first of all, the reason why Venezuela is in the trouble that they are, and I wrote about this in the book in 2015, The End of Freedom, How Our Monetary System Enslaves Us, where I actually predicted the crash of the Venezuelan economy. Because, listen, Venezuela had 95% of their budget was oil income. So just there, and as, of course, the oil price went from 120 down to, you know, about 40, well, of course, the Venezuelan government had no money. So what they did, they printed mass amounts of bolivars fuerte to, you know, support all the debt that they racked up, because they racked up a whole bunch of debt on top of, you know, the revenue that got in from the oil, about, I think, $36 billion, but in US dollars. So, of course, through having to print the bolivars and people starting to lose faith in the value of the bolivar, that, you know, was a massive crash for the economy. And, of course, they ended up in hyperinflation because of it. So, of course, this stupid economic warfare idea that he's talking about, it was himself that, you know, put himself in that, him and Chavez putting themselves in that position.
And the central
because
banking
they were
system.
massively dependent on the oil as a revenue source to fund a massive government.
This is the inevitable end of both all fiat systems and all socialist systems, because spend, spend, spend. They spend all of capitalist money until there are no capitalists, and I think that that is the fate of all these places. But I mean, it's just sick because people are starving. People are forced to eat food out of the gutters while they live in palaces, and it's very in tune with
rabbits, and you'll survive.
People are, of course, going to eat the rabbits. I know a lot of places rabbit is a very common type of food, but it's more about the fact that they're just joking about it, and they're like, let the peasants eat cake. And unfortunately, I mean, people are dying in gutters. They are, like I said, eating their pets. They are dealing with bread lines. They're being stamped for that. They're out of paper for the most part. They're trying to escape the country. They're not being given passports anymore because, well, not to a large extent. There's very few passports being printed, and it takes a long time. And if you pay a whole bunch of the money, extra money to the government, maybe they'll get it for you. And it's just... This is a government on full scale. Yeah. This is when government says, oh, aren't we so kind by causing problems, having you react to it, and then giving you solutions, which are the problems in the first place, that we are dependent on government? What if these people, the good people of Venezuela, were able to go out and properly be self-dependent and independent, I should say, and actually start businesses without government stealing almost everything they have, putting crazy bans out on the street, don't speak too loudly in this area, don't carry guns, don't smoke, don't do this, don't do that. Mm-hmm. Reminds me of New York and their 2-ounce soda bans that they're trying to put in place. It's just ridiculous. And government extorts you and kidnaps you and throws you in cages if you don't go abide by their rules. Government is a mob. Government, the whole point of government, they hold themselves up via the theft of the populace, the extortion of the populace. They cannot exist without abusing people and destroying individual liberty and destroying individualism and throwing you in a cage if you go against it. And what we're seeing in Venezuela is exactly what we should expect from such a system. John?
Yeah, well, just to, tell people how much the Bolivars have actually lost its value since we did one of our latest videos. We were talking about, it was about, I think, $3,000-$4,000 Bolivars per dollar if you go through Bitcoin. Well, now currently it's 20,000, and that's just within a couple of months. So you see, like now, I always talked about when a currency loses its value, you usually lose it very rapidly throughout just a year. Yeah. And sure enough, it's really like starting to just incrementally get worse and worse, and it will eventually, like throughout probably 2018, the current bolivars would be completely eviscerated.
Yeah, absolutely. And either they're going to become another safe haven for the IMF, which I'm sure the IMF is just drooling over the vast amount of subservience that this populace
and resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a big uprising happening in Venezuela. Unfortunately, so many activists that are rising up against this socialist oppressive state are being killed in the streets, and people are being disappeared. And this is exactly what, you hear all these socialists say, we need peace and love, we got to stop the greed, and we have to stop the violence. But using violence, we're going to steal other people's money because we feel like we're entitled to it. So therefore, they're violent and they're greedy. I mean, I just don't understand how this doesn't go through people's minds. It's so ironic, but of course that's a reality of people who are shoved information down their throats by the public school system and the media, and it's no different in Venezuela. It's just more on an extreme level, and a lot of other countries are heading quickly in that direction. But with that said, John, what do you think the bottom line, is there even a bottom line other than like just overthrow your horrible government? I mean, what?
Well, the bottom line, I don't even know. Like, I'm kind of speechless at this point what Maduro is doing there. He's kind of sitting there chuckling in his chair. You can see it on the picture, and it's kind of the end of this whole like socialist economy in Venezuela. I think there's either going to be a massive there is civil war, but on a massive scale. I think civil war is coming, and a toppling of the current government, or it's going to become a massive dictatorship, like this funny idiotic state of North Korea. That's where they're heading if this continues, and of course if they let him be that this powerful person there, over time it's going to end up as North Korea, and I don't know. Like it's just
with some help from like
completely
other
failed
communist
state,
countries.
and it started with a socialism idea.
Yeah.
But then the problem is you gave so much power to the government that people that were greedy and with totalitarian thoughts are getting into power, like Maduro and others. And then you taking over that, as Lenin said, socialism is just a stepping stone to communism.
Absolutely, and it could be towards free markets if people wake up from the slumber that they've been in. And it's interesting that we see Maduro in one of these stages of loss, and that's denial. I mean, he's laughing there,
It's
but
full
he's
denial,
absolutely. But collectivism always begets collectivism.
and
It always
blaming
grows.
everybody but himself.
It always grows in size and scope, and it just leads to more centralization of authority. And like I said, it's the leaders living in palaces while the people drink out of gutters at the side of the curb. And with that said, we'll wrap it up there because we've done so many reports on Venezuela. You can find tons more information on what's going on there, going back almost 2 years now that we've been reporting on this particular uprising and the crash. And you've written about it in your book in 2015. I was warning people, back in, I believe, 2009. Keep in mind, I'm only 23, so give me a break. I would have been saying it from the beginning if I was old enough at the time, but I've been saying it for many, many years now that this was going to happen, as people like Abby Martin on RT were saying Venezuela is a hope for mankind. It's a utopia. Bernie Sanders was praising it, and he's still kind of praising it because he says he likes bread lines. And then people like Jeremy Corbyn were praising it. They still refuse to go against what Maduro says and condemn what's going on. And yes, the U.S. has just a very minimal manipulation of this situation. Of course, the U.S. is usually involved in everyone's situation, but this is one of the situations where they just kind of stood back and they said, look, you are implementing crazy levels of socialism and centralization. We don't want the boulevard. We aren't going to take the boulevard. Russia, they owe Russia a big debt, so Russia's like, we're putting sanctions there. It's only reasonable for them to do so if you think in that kind of status way anyway. So when it comes to what Venezuela is going through, yes, the U.S. could be, even if they were fully to blame and they were fully behind this in some kind of coup, they used the practices of socialism in order to crash the country, which is such a perfect way to push people into servitude and debt servitude.
Yeah, and they're of course scared because Citibank might go bankrupt because of this massive $1 billion debt that they borrowed to
Absolutely,
so.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, finishing it off there. Thanks for going into this with us, John. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Now to sound like an auctioneer. Thanks for watching, everyone. Check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored by YouTube as they bring in the Anti-Defamation League to flag all of our content as hate speech. Also check our Bitcoin address in the description in the comments, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And don't forget to check me out at Josh Sigurdson at Steemit.com. That's Steemit.com, the future of social media, where you get paid via cryptocurrency, Steem that is, by the upvote and demand of your post. It's bound to take out the dinosaur social media, so I hope to see you there. But until next time, check out this word from our sponsor.
Are you looking to exchange a large amount of US dollars? Don't overpay with the bank on currency exchange. Think outside the bank. Banks charge unnecessary fees of up to 3%. Truth be told, currency exchange with the bank will cost you hundreds to thousands of dollars. Start saving now. Step 1. Register online. Visit our website and click Get Started. Step 2. Book a transaction. Phone us for a quote and to complete the transaction. We'll need to know which currencies you are converting and how much. Step 3. Transfer of funds. Once you confirm the transaction, we initiate an electronic funds transfer from the account that you choose. Your purchased funds are then transferred back to you in the account that you choose within 1 business day. It's that easy. Start saving hundreds of dollars on currency exchange with CBCE. Sign up online or give us a call today.
We'll be right back.